think the main reason is basically we're self-financed, and for that reason we don't have any machine behind us. We have to do it all ourselves, and these things take longer for that reason. We recorded the album fairly quickly actually. We had to wait a while to basically to get the funds up to get it mixed, and so it just took a lot longer than we expected. The reason we called it nostalgia, there seem to be quite a lot of songs which refer back to the past in some way. Though I wouldn't like people to think that the album is in some way, when we called it nostalgia, that it's some sort of glorification of the past. If anything, I think the album tries to move forward. But the title track, Nostalgia itself, actually talks about not looking back and the dangers of looking back, not to dwell on the past. But of course, we contradict ourselves. There's another track, for example, called 17, which looks back to your first loves and all that entails. So it does seem to be a running theme in the album, reference to the past and dangers of nostalgia, etc. So it seemed to be a good title for the album. All our albums, I think people always say, oh, it sounds like this and it sounds like this, and we certainly have our influences, but we try to not sound like anybody but Saville. So I don't really like to talk about specific influences, because maybe it makes people think we're about a certain type of sound. Like, I think probably the best way of answering a question like that is the biggest influences for me when it comes to music, album-wise, the White Album by the Beatles, I think London Calling by the Clash, and also maybe Almond Cons by the Jam. And what they all have in common is they're very eclectic albums. For example, say London Calling, you've got Jimmy Jazz, which is a jazz track. You've got Clampdown, which is really punk rock. Guns of Brixton, which is sort of a reggae feel or whatever. But the thing is about the album is that it wanders everywhere. I love that about the album. The Beatles' White Album is their most eclectic album. So they're my favourite albums. The albums that meant a lot to me growing up. And I think what they said to me was that you don't have to be one particular type of music, that you can branch out. And I think the three Saville albums have all been like that. That we're trying to, not have one particular sound. It's been a big influence on me right throughout the history of Saville, is to write different songs in different styles. And again, it could make us seem directionless, but actually the whole point of it is not to have one specific direction, but to branch out as much as we possibly can. And I think, yeah, the first two albums are like that, and this album is like that as well. I think it ranges from very pop songs to very soulful songs. That's what I think myself. I think when any band makes an album, you always think it's your best work, your new album is your best work, and I do believe this is our best album. And I suppose what you really hope is that it's going to be very successful, as I thought Somnambulant Ballads was going to be very successful. Now, having said that, because we're not on a major label or anything like that, you have to be realistic, and I suppose what I'd really love from this album is to really raise our profile, maybe go on to a next level of gigs. We've been sort of playing the 300 people venue for a good few years now, so I'd love to move on to a different level where the album's sold a lot more copies. I'm being very diplomatic here, not saying how many copies the last two albums have sold, because I don't want to say it, but it would sell a lot more than the last two albums, and then we could raise the profile, do a lot more gigs. That would really be the minimum that we would be looking for. But of course what we're really looking for is world domination.